urge you that when you go back, that you start to get organised. There is a national demonstration on Saturday, 12th of December in London. I know there will be other actions organised all around the country, but we really need to make this national demonstration as big as we possibly can in the time. There are coaches already being arranged, organised all around the place. Go back, check your Stop the War website, organise with your People's Assembly, your trade union branches, etc. Get organised, get down here, and I will see you next Saturday. Now I would like to introduce to you Lindsey German, convener of Stop the War. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Romaine. Like the other speakers who've already spoken, I've gone through this week with a mounting sense, not just of despair, that we're now in the fourth major military intervention in 14 years. A war on terror which was launched in 2001, which was going to end terrorism, but has seen terrorism grow on an absolutely massive scale, which has led to the deaths of hundreds of thousands, if not millions of people, has led to millions of refugees. And the idea that we're going into this war again, cheered on, applauded, cheered in the Houses of Parliament, was one of the most disgusting scenes that I've seen for a very, very long time. But the idea as well that these people who tell us we've got to bomb, bomb and bomb again are the same people who say, you clogged up my inbox with lots of emails. I feel very, very intimidated by this. It seems to me that what is going on now, they talk about bullying. Let's get this in perspective. David Cameron's party is now having an investigation into bullying of its youth wing. David Cameron, the night before this vote, said to his MPs that they would be voting with terrorist sympathisers if they voted against the war, and that everybody against the war, which is probably about 20 million people in this country, is a terrorist sympathiser. If that isn't bullying, I don't know what is. And it did result in only 7 Tory MPs voting against the war. And that is because that is the way they try to do things. They bully abroad and they bully at home. And the idea that people protesting is bullying. The idea that you cannot go to an MP's office and have a demonstration outside, that you can't argue with them. You think many of these MPs, Tory and Labour, if they're elected to a safe seat at the age of 30, they can be there for the next 50 years without serious electoral challenge in many, many parts of the country, but their constituents don't have the right to tell them when they think they've got it wrong, and particularly when we are still waiting for a Chilcot report into the Iraq war. Well, let's not speculate. I was going to say it's almost certain to be critical of Tony Blair, but let's wait and see. Maybe the lawyers will take everything out of that. We're waiting all that time, but before they can produce this report, they can produce the case for another war. And when they say terrorist attacks in this country have absolutely nothing to do with our foreign policy, you know, it's one thing to say you cannot necessarily explain every single terrorist attack by grievances over foreign policy, but does anybody seriously think, hand on heart, that you can say those policies, the bombing, the invasion, the occupation, the torture, the rendition, has had nothing to do with the growth of terrorism? That simply is not credible, and it is one of the greatest lies that our government is putting. Just a word on Hilary Benn's speech, which seems to have mesmerised all the Blairite MPs, all the Tories who loved it, of course. When the SNP clapped in Parliament a few months ago, they were told off in no uncertain terms. But this time, this was a great parliamentary moment. The last person I remember being applauded like that in Parliament was Tony Blair on the day he left. And it hasn't gone well for him since then, so I wouldn't be too cheerful if I were Hilary Benn. But look at what he said. Tarek's already referred to it and other people have referred to it as well. That we are fighting fascism. This is like fighting Hitler and Mussolini, and it's like the Spanish Civil War. Now please, perhaps if we're having a collection at the end, we can take £20 out of it to send Hilary Benn a history book or two. Hitler was in charge of one of the largest industrial and military countries in the world. He occupied virtually the whole of Europe. ISIS are at most 45,000 people fighting in the desert. So let's get this into perspective. Whether you think they're fascist or not, I don't particularly think the term fascism should be lightly bandied about on any old person that the British government doesn't like, although, as Tarek has said, they've been doing it since Nasser in Suez in 1956. But whether you think they are or not, the idea that this is an existential threat of the sort that people saw in the Second World War is simply a ludicrous claim to make. And of course it always works on certain Labour MPs who immediately say, oh yes, I was very convinced about that because I want to fight fascism. Well, if you want to fight fascism, go outside Finsbury Park Mosque like we did last night. The only MPs there, to the best of my knowledge, were Jeremy Corbyn and Catherine West, who supports him as one of his foreign affairs ministers. If you want to fight fascism, there's lots of ways of doing it. Partly we could stop scapegoating Muslims and refugees. That would be a way of fighting fascism as well. I want to make it's time already, so I want to make one final point before I end, which is this, that the lobbying and the protests this week and last week were incredibly effective. That's why I think Tarek's right. I think if it hadn't been for those protests and lobbying, the number of Labour MPs voting with David Cameron would have been even higher. So that was a huge achievement which we should all take credit for. And we are not going to stop doing this. They're attacking us because it was effective, because there is a protest movement. And therefore what we have to do is stay on the streets, is organise debates, organise meetings, and next Saturday, get to London, 12 o'clock, we hope Trafalgar Square, although there's a dispute over the Christmas tree, but we hope we'll be able to go to... the Christmas tree was actually is given to us by Norway because of London's role in fighting fascism, so it's probably the best Christmas tree around. It's not a corporate one, it's a very nice one, but we think we should be able to demonstrate as well. But wherever we end up demonstrating next Saturday, be there, be organised, and keep fighting this government.
Thank you very much, Lindsey, German.